Hello students, welcome back to the session. In the last session, we learned about the definition of the class and also about the different types of access specifiers, that is your private, public and protected. Now in this class, we are going to learn about the definition of member functions. If you remember, a class is made up of data members and member functions. Member function is the one which is going to do the work, right? So a member function can be defined in two ways, that is inside the class definition and outside the class definition. Now remember, this is an important part in this. It is one of your 5-mark questions in this chapter. How do you define member functions? Explain. So you have to explain both inside the class definition and outside the class definition with a syntax and an example. Sometimes it may be for a single function, that definition, that's either in the inside or the outside. Now let us go for the inside the class definition. Now what do you mean by this? Whenever you are using smaller functions, then they can be defined inside the class definition. If you are using smaller functions, then they can be defined inside the class. A function prototype is not required if a function is defined within a class. These are the points that you are supposed to remember. Function prototype is not required if you are using it inside the class. Now how are you going to define? What is the syntax? Now if you know, remember, class name, access control specifier, data members, access control specifier, return type, function name, argument 1, argument 2. You can give it as many arguments as you want to. Then give your statements. It can be either one statement or more than one statement. And if you want, you can use a return statement also. This is optional. If you are returning only, then you can use this statement. And then close. This is your syntax for the inside the class definition. Now as you know, this class is your keyword and class name is your identifier, right? And the access control specifier is optional, but if it is present, according to that, a function can access the data. The return type is nothing but the type of the value that you are sending back after you complete that work, and the function name is useful to identify what type of the work it is doing. Then a function may take one or more than one arguments, and these values will be used for calculation or the processing part. And the body of the function contains a set of statements depending on the type of the problem that you are going to solve. And the return statement, as I said earlier, it is optional. If you are going to return a value, only then you can use this statement. Okay, so this is a syntax for your inside the class definition. Now let us go for an example or a programming example, and let us find or a program to find the area and circumference. Let us go for the circumference also. Area and circumference of the circle. I am taking a simple example. You know how to write the program for this, right? But we are using inside the class definition and classes and objects here. And whatever the programs you are going to do in this year, it may be either theory or practical, you have to use the concept of classes and objects only. You cannot write the normal programs that like you were using last year. So the beginning remains the same. Hash include iostream.h, hash include con.io.h, and then here we start with the class definition, the keyword class followed by the class name. Class name we are giving it as area. Open access specifier, we are mentioning it as private, and then integer r, float area, circumference, then the next access specifier public. See this is your member function. These are your what? Data members. This is your member function, void get data. Then here I am going to enter what is the requirement, that is cout, enter the radius. If you remember, whatever you are using over here, that is r, the same has to be given here also, that is c in the r, and then close this part. Now what is the difference between your inside the class definition and outside the class definition is, whatever this part you are using, you are giving over here, this part you will not be giving inside in the outside the class definition. It will be out. Only this part will be out. The rest will be there as it is. Okay. Next part or the next member function, that is void. This is your processing part. Calculate. You are supposed to find the area. Given here, area and circum. Okay. Area equals pi into r. Circumference equals 2 into pi into r, and close. This is for the next member function. Next you have one more member function, that is to display the result, give the output, that is display the data. Then here how are you going to give the data? Cout area of the circle equals area. Then cout area, sorry, cout circumference of the circle equals circum. You'll be giving the end line as usual. So this is the, then close your class. This indicates that your class definition has completed with this part. And then come to the main part of the program, that is void main close. This is your class name. Okay, this is the class name. Area is the class name, and then you are going to give a, this is your object. Okay, class name and object. Then using this object name, that is a, you are going to use this member functions, that is your get data, calculate and display data. Okay, so a dot get data, a dot calculate, then a dot display data and close. This is your program to show your inside the class definition. So now what happens in this is a main part. As soon as you go for your class name and a is the object. So next a dot get data. When you go for a dot get data, the program goes to this part, that is enter the radius, scene and r. And then when you go for the a dot calculate part, it goes to this part, calculate, and finds the area, stores it in this area, finds the circumference and stores it in circumference. And then a dot display data, it goes for your display data, and that is your inside the class definition. This is a program, a simple program to represent your inside the class definition. So in the next session, let us talk about outside the class definition. Remember, this part is what is important. Get data, the calculate part and the display part. Just keep in mind, have a touch before we go to the next session, that is outside the class definition.